Priscilla is the newest film from writer and director Sofia Coppola, based on the memoir by Priscilla Presley. Coming the year after Elvis, an energetic, hyperactive tribute to the king of rock and roll, now we have a slow, muted movie about how he was a terrible person who married a high school student and treated her like garbage. It presents a new side of him, one that should probably at least stay in the back of one's mind when thinking of his legacy, even if it's far in the back. Like how I'm pretty sure any Lovecraft fan knows that he was a racist. Elvis was a bad person and I want you to feel bad. So for that, I should probably like this one a little more than Elvis, especially since Elvis was a pretty imperfect movie. Good news, Priscilla doesn't have Tom Hanks' god-awful accent. But unfortunately, and I don't want to say this, but I much prefer Elvis. Don't get me wrong, this is not a bad movie by any means. It has good acting, once again no Tom Hanks. The central couple is convincing, not as a couple in love, but one could see why Priscilla would think she's in love. But where it kind of falters, in my opinion, is in its writing and directing. Like I said before, it's a pretty slow-paced movie and the amount of drama isn't always enough to justify that. Yes, the shock of seeing a grown man having a relationship with a teenager is unsettling, and there are a few scenes that are good at showing Elvis's toxicity. But they're rarely as powerful as they should be, especially compared to something like the recorded argument scene in Anatomy of a Fall. There isn't really a lot of urgency to the narrative. Priscilla is kind of a flat character for a lot of it, mostly just defined by her relationship with Elvis. Baz Luhrmann's Elvis got a pretty good picture of the title character, even if it's only the good stuff about him. But sadly, Priscilla does not. Also, the ending is abrupt and very anticlimactic. But once again, it's a pretty decent look at this toxic relationship, even if it's a little disappointing. It's a slow burn drama that could have probably been more, but it does enough. A good companion piece to Elvis, two sides of the same story, the good and the bad. Yin and yang, done with completely opposite styles. Just know that Elvis is the far more entertaining one.
Night and you and blue Hawaii. The night is heavenly, and you are heaven to me. Hawaiian sunset. I'm a poor Hawaiian beach boy, a long way from the beach.
I don't have Apple TV Plus, so I can't see the MonsterVerse show. But who cares, because now we've got Godzilla Minus One, from writer and director Takashi Yamazaki. Another Japanese kaiju movie to make the Godzilla x Kong trailer that dropped the day I saw this look weak by comparison. This is subtitled, of course. I'm only half convinced that some of the kids in the theater I went to knew that. There were these two 10 to 12-year-olds near me who left maybe half of an hour in. Oh, and in the row behind me, somebody bought a fucking toddler. Could he even read at that age? And this is a monster movie, so there were the kind of trailers that played before other horror movies. I mean, not a lot of truly intense ones, but still. During the trailer for the movie Imaginary, possibly the most intense one, I looked behind me and saw him covering his eyes. I seriously hope he did not sit through all that just to not understand what was going on in the actual movie. Parents, don't bring your toddlers to foreign horror movies. But whatever. In my video on Godzilla's Singular Point, I complained that every American version of Godzilla since the release of Shin Godzilla is unfortunately better than all of the Japanese ones since then. Well, it doesn't look like that's a problem anymore. Damn, you didn't have to go this hard, man. So it's a little more like the original than the MonsterVerse, or let's face it, most Japanese movies. No funny business here, back to making Godzilla into a symbol of nuclear war. It even takes place shortly after World War II, just like the original. The country is still reeling from the effects of the real-life nuclear war, but are trying to recover. Yeah, something tells me that might be a little harder now. The title is not explained in the movie, and you really need to look to the trailers to understand it. Basically, Japan had nothing back then. Now they have less than nothing. Yeah, you own negative things now, Japan. -1 things. Surprisingly, it isn't as depressing as I was expecting based on that explanation. Either way, the filmmakers know how to give this kind of thing power. Godzilla is a menacing force here. This steers more toward the horror aspect of it all, and this guy is really something to be feared. He's just an unstoppable killing machine, and you feel his power. and he is really pissed off for no reason here. When he uses his atomic breath in one scene, it has serious impact. It reminded me a little of the nuclear test scene in Oppenheimer. Yes, for reasons that are obvious for people who saw it, but also for just how powerful it was. I could feel the explosion in my seat the same way I did in Oppenheimer. And it all looks good too. This has a budget of what translates to $15 million US, and you guessed it, it still looks better than a lot of big American movies that cost hundreds of millions. But what really sets it apart is something that you probably never thought you'd hear about in a Godzilla movie. The human stuff is actually interesting. Yes, this one focuses on an actual character, a kamikaze pilot who chickened out at the last second and is ostracized because of that, but just might redeem himself in this battle. It follows him and his family, and they're all people who the audience could actually care about. My feelings for him kind of snuck up on me. I spent most of the movie thinking, yeah, this is some decent human drama, especially for a Godzilla movie, but like my experience with Top Gun Maverick, it wasn't until the climax when I realized how invested I was. Actually, there was also the atomic breath scene before. The emotional impact of that also hit hard. All this comes together to make probably the best Godzilla movie since the original, at least. Yes, it's better than Shin Godzilla. While that one was strictly people in suits talking about military strategy, this one not only takes place on the front lines, but actually spends time getting to know the people behind the fight. I don't want to say it's better than the original. I mean, that was a classic, and if I say it's better, it's probably just recency bias. It just has better effects, better characters, a more effective story, probably better acting, better everything, maybe? In my YouTube short, I gave it 4 out of 5 because that was what I gave the original on Letterboxd. But it was only shortly after when I decided it was worth a 4.5. That's what I get for forgetting to say review coming this week instead. But either way, it will be remembered as one of the great Godzilla outings. It's everything you want to see in a creature feature with some of the best human drama in the franchise.